tithe. They've created quite a powerful structure.
Right, but it's internal and external. But if the church gave 10%, it would equal, in 1 year, it would equal almost 2/3 of the stimulus. If they're passionate about what they're doing, it doesn't matter if they're a CPA.
Or a fireman.
Or a fireman, there you go. Okay, or a pastor. It doesn't matter, because they have the skill, the gifts, and the ability, and the desire to do it, and they're passionate about it. And when you are passionate about it, you're allowing the Spirit to work within whatever those gifts are. Then, if you feel led through the Spirit to be a technical support missionary, or a translator, or a church planter, or a pilot, or whatever, God will lead you into that. I mean, this word says that He will give us the desires of our heart. But our heart needs to be set on Him. If we think, oh, I'm just a CPA, I'm not called to do that, well, we're missing it. They have missed out the gifts that God can lead them into.
How many people does your organization serve per year?
Oh boy, that's a good question. Unduplicated number?
Unduplicated.
With our core services, probably 1,800 to 2,000.
When you say core services, what distinction are you drawing?
Well, we have our in-house services. We have emergency shelter, case management, long-term programs, but we also have public services. The holiday meals, backpack drive, the back-to-school program, things like that, we serve over 240,000 meals a year.
Yeah, but one guy can eat
right,
900 of those.
And that's why I said if you're talking about unduplicated, which I really am careful about, because when people ask that question, oh, we serve 240,000 meals a year. But yeah, I mean, one guy could come in and have 400 meals. So get unduplicated number is what I go. That's why I go to core services. We can measure that. We may have 800 meals on an Easter morning, or Easter afternoon, but that's people from the community. But individual core services from our what I consider our core services, about 2,400, or about 2,000, 2,400 the last year. For example, we have a limited number of bed nights.
How many bed nights?
Beds
okay.
Times 365. That's how many bed nights. One person might be here. For example, in a long-term program, this is a 1-year program. So there's a number of beds, 40 to 50, or now 60 men and women who will be here a whole year if they go through the program. And so that modifies that number somewhat. It limits the number as well.
I noticed in the materials I was reading about you, I don't remember if it's what you sent me or what I found on the web, that it's a requirement for someone who graduates from the 7-day program to the year program to express an interest in a relationship with God. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. So if someone expresses a disinterest in a personal relationship with God, is there anything you can do for them beyond the 7-day program?
Absolutely.
What?
We have 4 programs. One is the 7 days, no questions asked. People come in off the street. And we try to steer them in the right direction, but there's no pressure, there's no information unless they give us maybe they give us their name, but beyond that, it's no questions asked. And they can do that for every 3 times a year. Okay. Beyond the 7 days, we have case management. Okay. After the 7 days, they're required to come into case management, sit down with a chaplain or a caseworker. They're also required to register with the city's multi-service center, which is the city's homeless services. So we get them in the system. Okay. Then we get them connected to whatever resources there are.
What kind of resources might there be through that? Are there other shelters or long-term programs?
It's everything from getting their ID, their social, finding out what financial resources might be available to them, if they're eligible for disability or they've let that lapse, or whatever the situation is. That's also help. But it's also housing. Some people are ready for permanent supportive housing. And so we want to try to get them a set of keys. You know, and there's an there's other agencies within Long Beach that we work with that collaborate with that process. There's some people that need some medical, good medical things taken care of, and so we focus on that. Whatever their needs are, job-wise as well. There's some people that, and while those people are here, they see the people in our long-term program. They may see as somebody they knew on the street and serving here, and they go, "Oh, hey Joe, what's going on?" And he tells them, "Well, I'm in this long-term program, the New Life program." And that is specifically a Christian rehabilitation, more like a discipleship program, more than a discipleship program that deals with them, helps them reconcile with God, within themselves, the issues that find themselves, that how and why they find themselves on the street or in addictions or whatever, reconcile them with their family and relationships, and then hopefully ultimately reconcile them to society, to the community.
What percentage of the people that enter the no questions asked 7 days choose not to avail themselves of one of the deeper programs and walk back out the door to homelessness?
Yeah, I can't give you that. No, that's a big question for my program director.
Okay.
Or for the caseworker themselves.
You don't track that?
It's like, well, we're getting a new program, a new database program that will be able to track that. Because we want to be able, especially with funding sources, measurable outcomes is a big thing nowadays. That's a real key term, measurable outcomes. And I'm big on that too. Like I said, when I focus on unduplicated number, because that's part of that process, the equation of getting to measurable outcomes. Gone is the day that we just open the door and people come and go and receive services. You have a revolving door. That's what it was like 6 years ago, a revolving door, basically. And a lot of missions were that. 3 hots and a cot, I'm sure you've heard that, or soup, soap, and salvation. And that's part of that theological mindset of some groups, that some theologies that can say, well, you just lead them to Jesus. On the other hand, you have the other extreme that says, well, we need to change the environment so they can be successful. There's a middle ground.
In 12-step fellowships, they say that you only need to change one thing. What's that? Everything.
That's a good, yeah. Holistic. Again, it's holistic. It's not just one thing. And I will be bold and bold enough to say that if somebody comes in off the street and has dinner and gets a shower and shave and new clothes and then goes to the chapel and gets saved and walks out the door back to the street, our mission is unfulfilled.
I would tend to agree with that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to give my money to that program.
Well, the thing is that is being a good Samaritan. That's what the Good Samaritan did. Okay. And in some ways, if that's what you can do, then you can do that.
It's better than leaving them out there, I suppose.
But for us, as a ministry that focuses on reconciling people in those ways that I mentioned, that is not enough. For the layman on the street, yes, give them, they ask for some money for a cup of coffee, well then offer to buy them a cup of coffee. For that day at that time, is that enough? Yes, it's enough to look them in the eye as a human being, interact with them, and supply what they're asking for, not the funds to do what they want. Because you have no control over that. But
you know what my problem with giving someone a cup of coffee and a meal? Here, let me buy you a burrito and a cup of coffee. Is that you enable them to remain in denial to the actuality of their situation for one more day.
However, what I said is look them in the eye as another human being, And most people don't do that. Okay? That is doing something. It's giving them a sense, a hint, a hope that somebody recognizes them for who they are.
The perfect Son of God, after all.
Yeah. They're made in the image of God.
In the image and likeness of God. They're the perfect Son of God.
Then that can be what they need. That can be, so for example, if you do that, and then somebody else comes by and does the same thing, but gives them a services handout. Say, this is where to get to, do you know where the rescue mission is? Do you know where the multi-service center is? Then they may think, you know what, maybe today I'll walk down there and see if I can get some help.
Well, Andy talked about doing that in his outreach, not here in Los Angeles, but I think it's Ohio that he's from, that he would go out on an outreach program where they'd take meals and they'd go find people living under a bridge or whatever and feed them and invite them down to the mission.
Yeah. And that's, again, and that is...
He said that one of those guys took over a year of him feeding him every day before he showed up.
Right. Right. And that's building that relationship. Now, if you're going to do that every day, you continually do that, you're going to build that relationship, then that's exactly good. It's a good thing. What happens for most people, though, is they may do that once. Or maybe they'll do it once a month. They're not building a relationship. They're going out and they have a meal in a park, and then they go back to their home and their church, and they feel good. They're doing it for them. You know, I've been going out to the park here and asked groups, do not feed in the park. Please don't do this. You're hurting our ministry. You're hurting
the people you think you're ministering to.
Hurting, pardon?
They're hurting the people they're ministering to.
Right, but they're coming maybe once a quarter or something like that. They're not building that relationship. Okay, what they need, they're doing it right across the street from a rescue mission, which hurts us with our neighborhood. So we have to minister to our neighborhood as well as the guy on the street.
So they're hurting the rescue mission because they're attracting homeless people to the neighborhood.
And they're right, because in this park there were drugs and homeless. Okay, some of them weren't coming to the mission, but the city, the neighborhood, looks at the mission and they see these people and they put the two and two together and they think they're ours. And before I got here, that was the thing. They'd come in, have a meal, and go back out. We were enabling that lifestyle. And then people come and serve in the park. Then they have 2 or 3 meals a day. If people have 2 or 3 meals a day, why should they change?
Well, I see it, but they don't. I see why they should change, but they don't.
Well, and then what they should do, what the groups coming to the parks should do, is bring those resources into the services in the city, not just the rescue mission. There's several organizations in the city that feed needy and desperate people, is increase our capacity. Because what they don't understand is they just had lunch, or they just had breakfast, and now they're getting lunch, and then they come back for another meal. We are saturating the helpless and hurting people with what Robert Lupton, the author Robert Lupton, calls toxic charity. It's toxic charity. We are actually hurting the people we're trying to help.
How do you spell Lupton, please?
Lupton, Robert Lupton, R-O-B-E-R-T-L-U-P-T-O-N. He's part of SCS Ministries. He's going to be speaking here at our prayer breakfast next week and helping us head up a community development forum on Thursday.
Okay. I won't be able to make that one.
One of his books is Compassion, Justice, and the Christian Life, Rethinking Ministry to the Poor. He's been working in urban centers in Atlanta for probably 3 decades or more. We need to rethink what we do to make it more strategic. a handout doesn't work.
They need a handout.
It needs to be connected or pointing the way to a hand up. Here's the deal. I equate it somewhat to the immigration issue. Okay? If we keep people from becoming homeless, if we keep people from being on the street, homelessness will decrease. Okay? If we stem the tide, then we will be able to keep people from becoming homeless and being on the street.
Seems like as a country right now we're kind of going in that opposite direction. I mean, our policies are directed in the opposite direction.
It depends on, yeah. Well, it's interesting because I think it was Robert Lupton in one of those two books that basically outlines that the government can't do it. If we think that